Imagine the sheer terrifying weight of a dragon. Like, we are talking about tons of impenetrable scale, dense muscle and raw fire, just a literal god of the sky.
Right. It's almost incomprehensible.
Exactly. Now imagine that same invincible creature just thrashing around, suffocating and hopelessly drowning in the cold, dark, salt water of the sea.
Oh, man, yeah.
It is such a jarring, unnatural image, but it completely shatters that illusion of invincibility we've been fed for years. Welcome to today's deep dive, everyone. We are thrilled to have you with us.
It really is a powerful visual to start on.
It really is. So you know that feeling when you take a deep breath before diving underwater? You fill your lungs, you brace yourself for the plunge, you close your eyes, and then someone just taps you on the shoulder and says, actually, we're going to hold off on this swim for about 2 years. Just keep holding your breath.
Yeah, the human brain simply isn't wired to sustain that kind of unresolved narrative tension. I mean, we need the release. When a story winds us up that tightly, we demand the splash.
And that agonizing, lung-burning tension is exactly what we are plunging into today. We are doing an in-depth analysis of the highly anticipated House of the Dragon Season 3 premiere. Specifically, we're dissecting the massive, bloody, and entirely chaotic spectacle known as the Battle of the Gullet.
And we're pulling from a really comprehensive review today that doesn't just look at the on-screen carnage. It also explores the fascinating behind-the-scenes redemption of the show itself.
Right. So our mission for you today is basically twofold. First, we want to extract the exact mechanics of how this single premiere managed to win back a legion of frustrated fans. And second, once we actually get out onto the water, we want to unpack the deeply personal, chaotic costs of this fictional war.
Definitely.
Okay, let's unpack this because, we cannot talk about the cinematic triumph of this premiere without first looking at the very real-world turbulence of its production.
Yeah, that production context is the crucial starting point. To truly appreciate the massive payoff of this Season 3 premiere, we have to look directly at the elephant in the room, which is, of course, the Season 2 finale.
Oh, for sure.
For a vast majority of the audience, that finale was viewed as a monumental failure.
Yeah.
I mean, it just left viewers stranded.
Totally.
The show had spent an entire season meticulously arranging its pieces, promising this apocalyptic clash. And then it just stopped.
Yeah, it just cut to black.
Right. It left the main characters glaring at each other from across the map, promising that the real action was just around the corner as long as you were willing to wait an indefinite amount of time.
And the real-world explanations for that are pretty well documented at this point. Production pointed to limited resources, they cited time constraints, corporate budget restraints, and all these real-world stopgaps that inevitably strangle creative freedom. And look, making television at this unprecedented scale is a logistical nightmare. But as a viewer, it felt incredibly jarring. It's like, imagine you hire a company to put on a massive, wildly expensive fireworks display for a grand finale.
Okay, I like where this is going.
You invite everyone, you set up the lawn chairs, the whole neighborhood is staring at the dark sky in eager anticipation. And then the company comes out completely deadpan and says, hey, we ran out of budget for the actual explosions. We're packing up the gunpowder, but we promised to light them off in 2 years, probably on a random Tuesday. Thanks for coming.
What's fascinating here is the delicate relationship between creative ambition and industrial constraints.
Yeah.
Because television is art, yes, but it is also an industrial product subject to balance sheets.
Right, it's a business.
And when those financial constraints force a narrative delay of this magnitude, it actively costs a show its cultural momentum. Trust with the audience is broken.
It really is.
But the saving grace our source points out, however, is that the creators eventually turned in their homework. Showrunner Ryan Condal went on record calling this Season 3 premiere the craziest episode of TV ever made.
Which is such an audacious quote, especially after a 2-year hiatus. And it achieves that crazy benchmark by essentially functioning as the displaced Season 2 finale that fans originally deserved. They took that lost momentum, bottled it up, and finally delivered the explosive payload.
Yeah, they really did.
But if you can adopt a better late than never mindset, this premiere is engineered from the ground up to win you back. Though the show does something incredibly risky right out of the gate.
Oh, the table setting.
Yes. You've waited 2 years, you hit play, you expect immediate dragon fire, And the narrative demands another 30 minutes of meticulous table setting.
It's basically a tactical briefing before the chaos. The board has to be perfectly set before it can be violently flipped.
Exactly. So let's look at the mechanics of that board really quickly, just to catch everyone up. The Crown is targeting the Valerian fleet to cripple their naval superiority, using the Triarchy to do the dirty work.
Right.
And the Triarchy isn't driven by complex Westerosi politics, They're driven by pure vengeance against Daemon for the crab feeder's death back in season 1.
That's highly personal for them.
It really is. But instead of jumping straight to the clash, the narrative insists on checking in on the entire ensemble. So we see Aegon escaping. We see Rhaena finally taming Sheep Stealer. Daemon is rallying the North. Criston Cole is just going out of his mind with boredom.
Yeah, Hugh and Ulf are just waiting around, stagnating. Alicent is mulling a surrender.
Right. We even get the debut of Ormond Hightower, played by James Norton, as the sheltered, overly refined, fancy lad. The source notes it's played for laughs, but, it is a staggering amount of ground to cover before a single arrow is fired.
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, these scattered 30 minutes represent a massive structural flex by the writers. House of the Dragon is burdened by the immense weight of a sprawling living world. So by intentionally delaying the battle to check in on these disparate threads, from the sheltered luxury of Ormond Hightower to the desperate survival of a dragon seed, the narrative is highlighting the sheer scale of the fragile ecosystem that is about to be destroyed.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense.
The writers are demanding that we look at the faces of the people whose lives are about to be shattered, ensuring the impending violence has actual emotional weight rather than just empty visual spectacle.
And the emotional weight they choose to highlight is deeply, deeply unsettling. Before we ever smell the sea salt, we are forced to sit through a masterclass in psychological decay.
The King's Landing scene.
Yeah. The show delivers this moment in King's Landing that contrasts so sharply with the physical destruction to come. Prince Aemon shares a scene with his mother, Alicent, and in absolute chilling silence, Aemon slowly leans in and kisses his mother on the mouth.
The edible moment. It is auditory torture for the viewer.
It really is.
The complete lack of score or ambient noise forces you to sit in the sheer discomfort of the act.
And he does it with such casual mundanity, right? As if it's the most normal thing in the world. Alicent's reaction, just staring back at him, wide-eyed and completely motionless, is haunting. You are trapped in this incredibly uncomfortable silence, processing the absolute mutation of this family dynamic.
It serves as a stark portrait of high-born psychological rot. The Targaryens and Hightowers have insulated themselves so completely within their own power and their own bloodlines that their moral compass hasn't just broken down. It is fundamentally mutated into something unrecognizable.
Right.
They are rotting from the inside out, lost in their own depravity.
Now, here's where it gets really interesting structurally. The show cuts instantly, without a second of breathing room, from this unsettling, silent, aristocratic kiss directly to a random peasant man defecating in the woods.
Yeah, that edit is brilliant. It's dark, almost crude humor, but it serves a vital thematic purpose.
It's the ultimate whiplash.
It really is the ultimate juxtaposition. You have the sterile, high-born rulers lost in their psychological rot, immediately contrasted with the gritty, unsanitary, basic physical reality of the lowborn.
Yeah.
The pacing slams these two worlds together because, in just a few moments, those two classes are going to violently collide on the water. The psychological rot of the rulers is about to result in the physical mutilation of the peasants.
So let's dive into that collision. We transition to the water, focusing on Corlys Velaryon, and the scale of the conflict shifts dramatically. Corlys executes this brilliant naval maneuver, navigating massive wooden warships through a tiny, treacherous, rocky passageway to gain a tactical advantage.
Right, using the environment.
Exactly. The review specifically compares this sequence to the film Master and Commander, pulling the quote, "Oceans are now battlefields. We are moving away from the broad strokes of fantasy warfare into the claustrophobic, terrifying logistics of historical naval combat."
And the historical parallel within the show's own timeline is crucial here. The last major confrontation was the Battle of Rook's Rest.
Yeah, back in season 2.
Right. But Rook's Rest was largely a sterile battle of the skies. It was an aerial dogfight, clean and distant. The Battle of the Gullet drags the war down into the muck.
It's so visceral.
Intensely visceral. We were watching ships splinter under ballista fire, while dragons fly overhead, turning wood and flesh to ash. And the technology of the sailors is actively adapting to the fantasy elements.
Oh, harpoons?
Yes. We see massive iron harpoons being slung into the sky, physically tethering these mythical beasts and dragging them down into the churning sea by sheer mechanical force.
I gotta be honest, though, I struggled a bit with one specific aspect of this spectacle. Our source points out that the inexperienced dragon riders are failing to control their beasts, actively burning and harming their own armies with friendly fire.
Yeah, the friendly fire was intense.
Seeing the dragons torch their own ships took me out of the moment a bit. It felt almost like a writing contrivance just to level the playing field. Like, how incompetent can you actually be when wielding the ultimate weapon?
Well, it's a valid critique if you're looking purely for tactical realism.
Oh.
But if you look at the thematic layer, that friendly fire is the central thesis of the entire battle.
Really? How so?
It is a profound commentary on the sheer incompetence of these ruling factions. They are wielding weapons of mass destruction that they do not fundamentally understand and cannot control.
Okay, yeah, I can see that.
The shift from the majestic sky battles to this chaotic friendly fire strips all the romanticism away from the dragons. They aren't noble steeds, they are terrifying, unpredictable liabilities that will just as easily consume the people who claim to master them.
That entirely reframes the visual for me. And it makes sense because the climax of the battle isn't even a dragon breathing fire, which proves your point. The highlight, as the source knows, is the sea captain Aelin strangling the Triarchy leader, Shirako, beneath the ocean currents with his bare hands to save Corlys.
Exactly.
The ultimate victory doesn't come from a magical beast. It comes from brutal, intimate, hand-to-hand human survival in the drowning dark.
Which perfectly funnels the macro-level chaos of the burning fleets down into the micro-level personal tragedy of the conflict. The true cost of this war isn't paid in splintered wood or even dead dragons. It is paid in the lives of the youth who are thrust into the center of it. We really must look at Jace's trajectory in this battle.
Oh man, Jace. So Jace locks his own mother in her room, directly disobeys her explicit orders, and flies out to the battle alone. The psychology driving that defiance is fascinating.
It is.
Actor Harry Collett gave an interview back in July of 2024 that provides incredible insight into his mindset. He described it as the classic 16-year-old dynamic. You know, the son desperately asserting, I'm old enough to do this now, while the mother insists, no, you're too young.
Right.
Collett noted that Jace was basically suffocating under the weight of inaction, desperate to actually do something rather than just plan.
And that youthful desperation mirrors the audience's own frustration with the delayed narrative, doesn't it? We all wanted action.
Right.
But within the harsh reality of Westeros, that youthful recklessness becomes a fatal flaw.
It really does.
From a production standpoint, it's darkly amusing that Collette expected this death to happen 2 years ago. He actually mentioned how his co-star, Steve Toussaint, refused to even read the script for this sequence because the emotional weight of it was too heartbreaking to process prematurely.
Wow. And the way the directors execute his downfall is just a masterclass in cinematic manipulation. It is a brilliant subversion of the audience's trained expectations. You watch Jace's dragon get ripped out of the sky and pulled into the water. You see Jace's head slip beneath the surface. The tension peaks.
And then he breaches.
Yes, he gasps for air and manages to haul himself onto some floating driftwood. And the musical score deliberately swells with this hopeful, triumphant chord progression.
The cinematic language is actively lying to the viewer, utilizing every trope of the hero's survival to build a false sense of security.
You feel this immense wave of relief. You think, of course he survived. Drowning is entirely too simple of a death for a major character in a franchise known for elaborate executions.
Right, you think he's safe.
Just when you think you have a firm grasp on the rules of this universe, it pulls the rug right out from under you. Right as that hopeful music reaches its crescendo, an arrow slices entirely through the sound design and nails him in the back.
So brutal.
A second later, another arrow hits his chest, and a final, brutal arrow goes straight through his neck. He is dead before the music even fades.
This raises an important question about the inevitability of fate and the punishment of traditional heroism in this specific fictional universe. Jace attempted to embody the classic impulsive hero archetype.
He really did.
He flew off against orders to single-handedly save his forces. In almost any other fantasy property, that kind of audacious action is rewarded with a glorious tide-turning victory.
Yeah, he'd be the savior.
But in House of the Dragon, attempting to be the bold hero usually rewards you with a literal arrow to the neck. The universe simply does not reward recklessness, no matter how noble or desperate the intention behind it.
So, what does this all mean? We've traced a remarkable journey today. We started with the real-world industrial frustration of a delayed finale and the burden of audience expectations. We navigated the intricate, slow-burn political setup that demanded we look at the sheltered elites before throwing them into the meat grinder.
We analyzed the bizarre psychological rot of the royals, too.
Right, contrasting it with the physical muck of the battlefield. And finally, we sank into the bloody, suffocating waters of the gullet, watching mythical weapons fail and traditional heroes get swatted out of the sky. The Battle of the Gullet is, without a doubt, a brutal, chaotic masterpiece of television.
It absolutely is.
It successfully redeemed the series' past-pacing failures by delivering an unparalleled visceral experience. But, as our source so clearly articulates, the result of this massive cinematic achievement is a definitive loss for absolutely everyone involved.
Total net loss.
That is the nature of war, and that is the defining ethos of House of the Dragon. Thankfully, the execution is brilliant again, but I want to turn this over to you, listening right now. How do you process the spectacle of war in entertainment? When the visual effects are this stunning and the choreography is this thrilling, does it distract you from the inherent horror of the narrative, or does it somehow amplify it?
It's a tension every viewer has to reconcile. Our source makes it explicitly clear that this battle, despite its visual splendor, is a net loss for every single faction on the board. So I leave you to mull over this final thought.
Let's hear it.
If the ultimate cost of this conflict is the drowning of your own children, the burning of your own allied armies through sheer arrogance and incompetence, and the irreversible mutated rot of your family's morality, if the end result of both victory and defeat looks exactly the same, basically a sinking ship and a grieving mother, what is the actual prize these characters are destroying themselves to win?
Wow. It makes you wonder if anyone on that board even remembers what they are fighting for anymore, or if the violence has just become its own self-sustaining engine.
Yeah.
We started today talking about holding your breath, waiting for a grand finale, a beautiful display of fireworks that got delayed for 2 years.
Yeah.
Well, the fireworks finally went off. They were dazzling, they were deafening, and they were undeniably brilliant. But now the sky is dark again, the water is quiet, and all that's left is the smoke, the ashes, and the heavy realization of exactly what had to be burned to make that light. Thank you so much for taking this deep dive with us. We'll catch you on the next one.